All right, what's going on YouTube? I'm back with part 3 of my investment series of guys to invest in early who could get an upgrade within the first 2 months of the season. I've got part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is about guys who could go to diamond. Part 2 is about those who could go to gold. This part 3, I'm separating the guys who could go to silver into pitchers and hitters because I had so many of them, and we're going to kind of cover them quickly. Just some interesting guys who I think have a really good shot at jumping up. You know where I'm going to start, though. Of course, I'm going to start with Kevin Gausman. He is a silver if we're going off of last year's scale, but they bumped the scale. He got bumped down. A lot of it's his home run rate. 53. Home runs have been an issue throughout his entire career, and it really holds him back. If you ignore that homer per 9, this guy plays like a silver for sure. Now, the 60 hits 9 is also pretty low, so that's going to be a growth opportunity for him. If he comes out firing and is pitching the way he kind of finished the season and the way I've been projecting him to the last few years, I think that 60 hit 9 is going to take a big jump, get him into silver quickly, and then we've got fringe gold potential with Gausman for sure. Next up is another guy I've been a big fan of for a while, got traded this offseason over to the Diamondbacks. It is Taijuan Walker. The guy who's be right on the cusp of silver if we were still using last year's system. But he did go down from last year's system, and look, again, it was because of home runs. This guy already plays like a silver. Because if you don't know, home run per 9 does not matter for online play. It doesn't impact anything. So you have to kind of ignore it and try to assess what impact it's having on that overall. I guarantee a 43 homer per 9 is costing him, 3 to 5 points off of his true talent level. So even if you go on the conservative end, he plays like an 80. On the upper end, you're probably talking 82, 83 in terms of how his skills play, just as is right now. Let alone if he carries over some of his spring work and starts to strike guys out and dominate the way we saw actually in the first half of last year. If you don't know, Taijuan Walker had some foot tendonitis that cost him about 2 months. Come to learn at the end of the year that he had to get 10 bone spurs pulled out of his foot, y'all. These things were substantial. I don't know if you know the game Jacks. I'm a million years old, so we used to play games that were in real life, not just on a video screen. And there's these things called Jacks. There's little, I don't even know how to describe them. They're really pokey. If you stepped on one, game over, and you'd bounce a ball and you try to grab as many as you can while the ball was in the air. It was a simpler time back in 1932 when I was born. But they looked like jacks. They looked like 10 jacks were in his foot. And I can't imagine stepping on one. For better example, Lego. Think about stepping on a little Lego. That's about what it would probably feel like to Taijuan Walker. And he had 10 of them in his foot, giving him problems when he landed. And so you couldn't put down the pressure on the land foot. And so he stops short, leaving his arm up, not following through. That leaves a lot of hanging pitches. Boom, you get a million home runs. I think he had a 2.0 homer per 9 rate in the second half. Just utterly devastating in the negative way, and that's why you got a 43 here. So I see big upside for him. I do think another fringe gold here. Now, not all of these are fringe golds. Some of them are just going to be guys who can get to silver, but I certainly see Taijuan Walker as a good long-term investment. Next up is a guy from Philly. They've got a few guys who you could really look at. You see Nola's already up there at 700. He was a gold at one point last year. Then he fell apart after his elbow really started barking. Jared Eichhoff is a solid guy. He's more better real-life guy than skills-wise, though. I don't think, he could have like a 3.30 ERA and it wouldn't necessarily translate to a great K9 or hit 9, so I don't necessarily like him. My investment is Vincent Velasquez. Now, he's the lowest of the group right now because he had some struggles last year. He was really kind of going through some growing pains, but he also had some of the best, the highest highs among that trio last year. I think he had a 17 strikeout game against the Padres. Now, I understand that's like playing the computer on veteran when you go up against the Padres, but it's still a major league team that you're getting to strike out into the teens during a shutout effort. It was a great game from him, and it really kind of showed you, crystallized in one game, what he can be like. He has to work out a lot of the inconsistencies if he's going to get an upgrade, though. But you bet on a talent like this for sure. Next up is an older guy, a veteran, Francisco Liriano. I think can get back on track and get back up into the gold range. Now, be a pretty big gain for him to go, for silver for sure. Not quite gold. He would be. I'm not sure I would even say fringe gold, although maybe. I'm going to say yeah. I would say yeah, he is a fringe gold because he was gold, I think, at the beginning of last year because he had been so good with Pittsburgh, and then he just fell off, really, really struggled with his command last year. And he's always had control issues, but he couldn't even throw quality strikes last year. He was still getting his strikeouts. Then he goes to Toronto on a trade, gets linked up again with Russell Martin, his former catcher from Pittsburgh, and starts pitching very well again. So I'm eager to see how he's going to come out. He is a little bit older at age 33, but there's still a lot of upside here. His strikeout rate has always been good. He's been tough to hit. When he's on, when Francisco Liriano's on, he's one of the best pitchers in the league. And so if he gets rolling in the first 6 weeks of the season, yeah, I could even see all the way back up to gold because he's been there before. Next guy is young guy from Pittsburgh, not Tyler Glasnow, who did win the 5th starter's job, but instead Jameson Taillon. And, you know, I got an easy comp for Jameson Taillon. It's very, very simple because a lot of things match up with these two. It's Aaron Sanchez, who, as you may know, is already a gold after a big breakout season from him this past year. Taillon, it could be his turn to kind of do his Aaron Sanchez thing. They share in common a devastating sinker. That should actually be a sinker, not a four-seamer, to be honest. Maybe we can see if San Diego Studios would change that. Hammer curveball, and then kind of an emerging changeup that does need some work and can get them in trouble against lefties at times. But you see here, his numbers aren't that great across the board. Last year was really his first foray into the majors after 2 years off. Not only did he have Tommy John, which costs you a year, then he got a hernia while he was recovering, and so he missed a whole second year. But he looked pretty good in the, I think 114 innings that he did have. And again, very Aaron Sanchez-like. And if he takes that step forward, remember Aaron Sanchez really took, the 2 steps forward last year and became a stud. I think Taillon can do the same and kind of follow on Aaron Sanchez's path. Now, next up is Mike Foltynewicz. Really interesting guy, has killer stuff, as you're going to see here, from an 89 velocity, 66 break. The stuff's already there. It's a matter of getting everything else in order, limiting home runs, limiting hits. It's all there. It's possible. I'm keeping a close eye on this guy. He was a former super prospect. I always thought he was going to end up in the bullpen because I just didn't think he was going to develop that third pitch enough to be able to get through lineups 2 and 3 times, but he really took some steps forward last year. I've got some pretty high hopes for him. I do still think that the worst case, or maybe not worst case, of course, worst case is flaming out, whatever. But I do think that if he doesn't quite make it as a mid-rotation starter, they could still entertain putting him in the bullpen, and he could be a closer for 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, he's got that kind of stuff. He throws 100 without blinking. Next up, another veteran guy returning from injury is Lynn. Now, he's pretty far removed from his Tommy John at this point to where I do think he can make it through the full season without really any trouble. Now, a lot of guys do get hurt at some point in their first season back from Tommy John, but sometimes the guys who have the extra time, I think he got his surgery in November, so then he missed all of last year plus this offseason. So you got till November would be 12 months, and then you got November and December, and then 3 other months. So you're looking at, 18 months thereabout? That's a lot of time off. That's a positive in this case. He's not coming back too quickly from Tommy John. He can make it the full year and get back into silver status pretty easily. Got 2 guys from Oakland. They've got 2 very intriguing guys. You should be able to guess both of them if you're familiar with their rotation at all. First is Sean Manaea. Very interesting guy. Big-time prospect. Could have gone probably top 5 in the draft if it wasn't for a hip issue at Indiana. That really affected him, or maybe he was at Indiana State, excuse me. I think he was Indiana State. But that really affected him in his last season, made him drop all the way to pick 34, ended up being a steal for Kansas City. Well, then he dealt with injuries as a pro as well. Finally built his stock back up, ended up being the trade, I believe, for Ben Zobrist when the Royals got him. So that's a win-win deal. The Royals won the World Series with Ben Zobrist on the club, I believe. And then now the A's are reaping the benefits of that deal. He showed flashes of excellence last year. We really got an idea of what this guy could be. He throws hard from the left side. A lot of talent. It's still a little bit raw, but I do think he can get to silver this year. Teammate Jarrell Cotton is another one who's very interesting. I think they did him a little bit dirty. I know he only had a small sample of about 29 innings, but they were an amazing 29 innings. And when you have a magnitude like that, I think you can get a little bit more credit than a 61. I mean, we saw Gary Sanchez, did what he did in a pretty small sample as well. It was 2.5 months for him, and this was only a month for Cotton. So I get it. I'm not saying he should have been a silver, but he should probably be a bronze because we saw some devastating stuff from him. He's got an amazing changeup, no quirks. I was just checking. Really was able to get swings and misses quite a bit. I think at the very least that K9 should be 15 points higher, maybe even more. And the hit 9 I think should be above 50. But that's all right. That gives him a lot more room to grow. This is a guy you can get now. Here's the thing with the team epics the way they are, and everybody has value. It's harder to get some of these commons on the cheap. But if he goes all the way up to silver, he's going to be worth a lot more than 240. So even though commons are more expensive than they were last year, you can still make a nice profit if he ends up skyrocketing. So I would invest pretty heavily in Cotton. I've got some high hopes for him this year. Next up, I don't know why I left the market. Cool life. Is another starter. And it is Charlie Morton, another veteran guy here. Age 33, he's been around the block. You feel like you kind of know who he is, right? He's just been that back-end rotation guy. What's so special about him? He made some mechanical changes last year that gave him some big-time velocity, and he was missing bats like crazy. But it was only like 19 innings. Pitchers hitting is the worst thing ever, and Charlie Morton can attest. I think he was running out a bunt or maybe like an infield single type of thing, popped his groin. Ruined his season, was out after like 17 innings of pitching. Never really got to see fully what those changes were going to yield when he was with Philly. But that was a one-year deal, I think. So became a free agent, goes down to Houston. Now we're talking up the hype again. He's healthy again. He's still showing that velocity. He's still missing bats. That K9 and hit 9 could really grow and really send him skyward. So I think it's a long shot to say that he would be gold, but I think silver is pretty easy for him if what we saw last year proves to be true for Charlie Morton. All right, next up, just a quick mention of Julio Urias. I always struggle saying that name. I say it differently every time. Urias, whatever. He's awesome. Not whatever. I want to say it properly, but I don't know why I can't just settle on one thing. Someone put it in the chat the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'll say it like that. And then I don't. But this guy is unbelievable. The fact that he's only 20 and has done what he's done at the majors already is ridiculous. They sent him out. He's not going to break camp with the team. That's on purpose. It has nothing to do with his talent or whether or not they think he can handle the majors. But they know he can't handle a full workload, so they're going to put him in extended spring training, kind of manage his innings, and he's going to be a midseason call-up. So this is a long-term investment I just wanted to mention. You might want to get in now. It is pretty cheap, and then it'll probably start to turn in June. So this is more long-term. All these other ones have been short-term. Guys, I think they could come out of the gate firing. He's not even going to be with the majors for a little bit, but sit on some shares of Julio Urias. 2 more starters, and then 4 relievers. This guy also got sent out, so it is a little bit more long-term, so I won't spend too much time on Jose Berrios, but he's a monster. And he's a common right now. He had a disastrous Major League debut last year, just so bad. He was tipping pitches. He was leaving stuff up. He had poor sequencing. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and he got his face caved in. But he was still dominating in AAA, and that is heartening to me. If you're going to have a meltdown season, that's one thing. That kind of changes your prospect outlook. You're like, man, this guy can't get anything going. For him, it was just the major league adjustment, and that's okay. He was 21 years old. It's to be expected sometimes. So he didn't quite come up and dominate. Don't worry about it. Again, got sent out, not going to break camp, so it's a long-term investment, but I did want to put him on your radar. This guy did break camp and got a job because of some injuries, as if the Mets needed another stud or a potential stud. Look at this. Is this Jacob deGrom? Oh, did they put the wrong picture? Wait, what? Did they just put... What? Oh my God, they put Jacob deGrom's pic. No, I'm kidding. That's Robert Gsellman, and he looks a lot like Jacob deGrom, and he could end up looking a lot more like him in terms of how he pitches as well. They actually have more parallels than just the flowing mane that you see here on this card. I don't think he's quite to the same height as Jacob deGrom, but keep in mind that when Jacob deGrom came up, we didn't even know that he had those heights. Jacob deGrom was a legitimate prospect and everything, but nobody was saying ace. They were saying best case scenario is he's like a fringe number 2, solid number 3, and he's turned into a pretty strong potential ace. So again, Gsellman, I don't think quite that high, but we got to see. I do think he is a mid-rotation kind of guy. He'd have to get, 9 points to get all the way up to silver. So it'd be a long way to go, but I think he could do it quickly because he was really good in his debut last year with the stuff that he showed, and now he's going to get an opportunity to break camp with the team. So get some cheap investments in him and kind of sit on it. Now, if I'm ranking them, I wouldn't put, all my eggs in his basket. Again, I did this on the last video. I said, if you're somebody who, when you do these investments, you get like 80 to 90 of a guy, and that's an investment, I would be like 30 with him. If your stronger ones are 80 to 100, and your medium ones are 50, 60, and then the guys that you think, okay, he could do something, and you get 30 of them, that would be him. Again, for me, I usually max out at like 10 of a guy. And so for him, I'll probably get 3. Something like that, just to have a couple, just in case. I'm a low level investor. You see, I only got 9,900 stubs. Come on, I'm gonna make that money work for me though. All right, we got 4 relievers. This guy, if you watched all my upgrade videos last year, I was on this guy early. I think I can take a little credit. I can get a little backpack going. I was on this guy early, and I still think we need some more love. Well, actually, no, pardon me. They gave him the love. I will say, they gave Carl Edwards Jr. the love. They needed to give him those upgrades last year, though, when we were projecting them in our prediction streams. But they hooked him up this year. Check that out. 96, 89, plus getting a little bit of a boost. So he's actually at 98, 91 right now. C.J. Edwards, absolute monster. 4-seam curve change. Former starter who, it just doesn't work. For him as a starter, he just couldn't quite figure it out there. That changeup isn't good enough as a starter. It's passable as a reliever. 4-seam curveball is really all he needs as a reliever. He's got to build like your boy here. He's 6'3", 170. I'm about 6'5", 170. So I'm actually a couple inches taller and still just this skinny. So go watch some C.J. Edwards video if you want to get an idea of just how skinny I am. But you know what? You can still be a beast at this height and weight. Well, look at Taylor Swift and Chris Sale. All right, next up, this guy takes a little bit of a hit because now he's just going to be a setup man. I thought he was going to be a closer. If you move to CP, you get a few points just for being there. It's Coda Glover, of course. He was all the rage. Wait, did they already put him at CP? Oh, they did. So he already got his boost, and he was only a 58. Holy crap. Well, they did him dirty. Well, maybe. You know what? I'm going to live look at these stats here. I'm going to live look at the Coda Glover stats from last year. Let's see what we dealt with here. It was only 19 2/3 innings. He had a 5.03 ERA, but ERA is not reflected in here. He allowed 6.9 hits, 3.2 walks, 7.3 strikeouts, 1.4 homers. So the homer should be a 53, or should be a 33. The walks should be a 53. The strikeouts are fine, and then the hits, how's that 53? He allowed 6.9 hits. Now, I know you can't just base it all on these 19 innings. Let me see what he was like in the minors. Long story short is that he's going to get upgrades quickly if he goes out and does well, even in a setup role. Yeah, what are we dealing with here? In the minors, he allowed 6.3 hits in 2016, and in 2015, it was 6.6. The dude never allows hits. How's he got a 53 hits 9? Oh, man, Listen, even though he didn't get the closer's role, he's actually going to move from CP to RP. I'm still investing here. This guy, I got 3 already. I'm hanging on. Whoops, why do I keep backing out there? And he deserves better. If he goes out and beasts the way he has been and starts getting the strikeouts, dude, he sits. Check this out, y'all. He sits. If you go over to Fangraphs, you put in Coda Glover, and then you click pitch type. It'll go to his repertoire, and you can see his fastball. It averages 96.6 miles per hour. So he sits 97, which means he peaks 98, 99, 100. And then his slider is 90 miles per hour. That's devastating. I'm big on Coda Glover here. Even though he didn't get the job, they gave it to Blake Treinen, who I guess I could include on this list too, now that he is the closer. Let me look at him really fast. I made this list before that happened. Let me see what Treinen's looking like. I know he's got big velocity. I remember using him in BR last year. So he's got amazing velocity. He's got a devastating sinker. He could be the next Zach Britton, y'all. Don't sleep on Blake Treinen. So there's two paths he could take. Is that Sam Dyson or Zach Britton? Zach Britton is obviously everything pans out brilliantly and he becomes a stud reliever. Sam Dyson path is still everything pans out very nicely and he still becomes a really strong reliever. Let me see what Dyson's at right now. Dyson's a silver, right? No, Dyson isn't a silver. Okay, so I guess there's not a lot of growth there, even if he takes the Dyson path. Okay, that's fair. Let me see what his strikeouts are, though. I think actually Treinen has more strikeouts than we've seen out of Dyson, though, if I remembered properly. Yeah, he's got a 24% strikeout rate. Treinen does. Dyson, I believe, has 20%. So maybe he can be in between the two. Yeah, Dyson had 19% last year. So maybe it'll go, if you're thinking about super sinker ballers, the reason I'm comparing them is they all have an amazing, unbelievable sinker ball. Maybe it goes Britton, Treinen, Dyson. I would invest in some Treinen's shares. He wasn't originally on this list. I would invest. All right, and last but not least here, this guy got done dirty, y'all. Tips, you watching this? You did him dirty. Come on, man. You did Grant Dayton hella dirty. I don't know what Grant Dayton did to you. Tips. I know you're a master troll. Like your roasts are tremendous. I love when you roast me, dude, because you're really good. But this might be your best roast ever. You gave Grant Dayton a 45. You roasted his face off. What did Grant Dayton do to you? Were you 11-0 in a BR and Grant Dayton beat you twice in a row? Is that what happened? Because I would understand why you gave him a 22 hit 9 for doing that. I would understand that. But that's the only thing I can accept. Everything else I think is unacceptable here. Because this is absolutely brutal. In the minors, he allowed 5.2 hits, which is elite, with 15.8 strikeouts. Okay, but that's just the minors. Let's not go too crazy about that. So he comes up to the majors for 26 in the third innings and gives up 4.8 hits with 13.3 strikeouts. What are you doing to Grant Dayton, Tips? My God. This is unacceptable. Now, Grant Dayton is not going to blow the doors off of anybody. He only throws 92, but 92 from the left side is not bad. That means he probably pumps up to 94. He's got a curve. They give him a curve over here, and they give him a slider. They did give him he does have a slider, but he should have curved slider. And the changeup, he doesn't throw a whole lot. Well, frankly, I prefer four-seam slider change, so I'm fine if they leave it at that. But you got to up these ratings. That hit 9 is disgusting. I think he needs to be higher. Oh, somebody already invested. You freaking snakes. I was going to take that 90. I'm going to take this 115 even. That's how much I feel he deserves an upgrade. Don't you savages go freaking getting everything. Somebody give me some Grant Daytons, you jerks. You know what? I'm going to buy this one too, just because y'all are snakes. But anyway, this guy was a monster. If he comes out and pitches the way he did last year at all, I mean, they have to correct him like that. I think that's a miss. I'm joking aside, and listen, they got so many guys in this game to get them all perfect would have been quite a challenge anyway. So I am definitely joking and roasting Tips back a little bit for the roasts he puts on me. But this was just a miss. Something happened. I don't know what happened with the way they set up their algorithm or their formula or whatever. But this is a miss. He should be much, much better. Honestly, he should be at a minimum. He should be 20 points higher in overall. And honestly, I think it could be upwards at 30. I think he should be a 75. So if he goes out and does what he did last year for a full season, then we're talking about a silver. So I like Grant Dayton. Anyway, that's going to do it for the pitchers who are bronzes and commons who could go to silvers. I even threw in a few fringe golds for you. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Got plenty of MLB 17 content coming out. I will do a hitters video probably over the weekend at some point of bronze and common hitters who could go to silver. Thanks for watching.